All right. Hello and welcome. Today is November 12th. We are talking about sustainability today in program development. We'll get going here. So I thought it would be good to start with kind of a definition. As sustainability is not something that's really, common everyday thing we're thinking about. Um, in terms of the environment, I think it's more common to think about sustainability in our environment and making sure that there is a healthy world, healthy environment for us to live in. But sustainability in terms of programs, program development, it should be a plan that details how the proposed project will create self-sufficiency and ensure that the impact of the project will continue after a set pot of funds ends. So what's really, really important is not that the program itself continues ad nauseum over and over, just without change. What's important is that the impact continues. And this ties in with our conversations previously around evaluation. You want to be collecting data and measuring and determining that you're having a positive impact because you don't want to continue something if it's actually having a negative impact. So why does sustainability matter? And do feel free to add if you can think of additional things. But some things that I came up with, we talked about grants being like an investment. It's a funder is making an investment in us. So that's return on investment is that program continues, but also this concept of stewardship, which is actually one of LUK's values too, that we are being responsible with funds that are given to us, and also we're being responsible with the faith and trust that people put in us when they let us into their lives to help, provide service, overcome a situation or a trauma or something like that. So we have a responsibility, and I have here at the bottom, you see, I believe it's an ethical responsibility to continue providing services that people rely on and are being helpful. A couple other things to think about, just the longevity of the organization or program or impact. LUK is almost 56, I think, 55. We were established in 1970, and I suddenly can't do math. And also sustainability builds credibility and also trust with funders and trust in the community that we will be there whenever they need us. And also having a sustainability, especially a plan, not just, I'll show you some statements related to sustainability, but actually having a plan helps us be prepared to manage unexpected situations. So this past year has been one entire unexpected situation. If you think about all the changes in federal funding and everything that has kind of rolled down, trickled down because of that. And so far, things have changed, programs have shifted, but on the day to day, we are still here and still going strong. So we have been able to manage all of the unexpected challenges that have come our way so far. Does anyone have anything else to add to this list? Like why? Why sustainability? Why do we care about it? Oh, to minimize risks. That's in the chat. Yeah, that's a good one too. I think it goes hand in hand with being able to adjust to whatever's changing in the external environment. All right, here's a long list. of just a few ways that the sustainability question shows up on grants. Because I think every funder in some way or another wants to know that the investment they're making will have a long-term impact, even though they're only committing a set amount of dollars, usually for a year, maybe 3 or 5 years if we're lucky. But especially private funders want to know that their dollars, which are many times small, but those small dollars are having a huge impact. They really want to know, and not just in the short term, but in the long term. So some examples here. What is your plan for sustaining the project beyond the grant period? Um, Partnerships and collaborations, like how do they play into the sustainability of the project? How do you plan to secure funds long term? I like the one that's the next to the bottom. Uh, how you ensure that the outcomes of this project have a lasting impact. So, big picture, going back to that definition, sustainability is really about continuing the positive impact, the outcomes. How services are delivered, the specific activities may change, but we do want to continue having that positive impact, whether it is people recovering from trauma or changes in the community that prevent youth from accessing or using substances. Or think about all the various programs and services that we offer. Like, what is our goal? What is our big picture? And if it continues to be relevant, how can we continue to work to sustain progress toward achieving that goal? Does anyone else have any weird ways they've seen questions about sustainability? I didn't mean to click it that fast, but I did this one on purpose. Think about luck and our programs and services, and what are some things that we have sustained? And feel free to shout them out or put them in the chat.
One of the ones that comes to mind to me that has been sustained for multiple years now is all of our transitional living services. Multiple grants make up that program, but overall, that service has been sustained for years now.
Yeah, so you're talking about TIL services, transition to independent living.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is an excellent example. It TIL wasn't always its own division. It was actually partnered with what was foster care at the time, like way back, way back. And then for a period of time, it was also in the former version of CES, Community Engagement Support Services, until they grew to warrant their own director and their own division. And certainly their services have grown and sustained. They provide transitional apartments, transitional living apartments for young people who would otherwise be homeless, vocational skill building, uh, support services for young parents. That was a good example. These programs have been around for over 20 years. They have changed how they look for sure, but absolutely have continued to exist. What are some other LUK services that have sustained?
The Together for Families services through the Community Services Agency, which we used to be involved with that in a different way, and then
Mhm.
we ended up reapplying, and now we're the one of the main contractors. So that's definitely changed, but in a good
Mhm.
way, and managing to sustain those services.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great one. That's really recent too. Mhm.
DCF contracted services that have many, many different branch offs now.
Yes, yes, yes. Um, Support and stabilization services were first bid in 2006, and then what, last year? I think they started in April. Um, and we definitely had to make some adjustments with our models, but for the most part, they have sustained. There was only one that we could not continue based on changes that the funder had made, and that was the youth support and tracking, had been called SOAR or uh, tracking, I think. I forget it. It went by a couple different names over the years. SOAR and YST. Thank you, Sarah. Youth support and tracking. All right, I'm looking at some of you, and you are in programs or provide services, either internal or external, that have gone through some changes but have still sustained.
Training.
That is
Um,
a good one.
it took them a long time before me. So I've heard the horror stories
Yes.
of keeping a trainer slash coordinator type
Mhm.
thing. So now I'm kind of doing both. But anyway, here I am, and it will be a year actually in January that I've been here. So
Awesome.
it's being sustained.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. At one point, we had training funded by the federal government, and we have not been successful at getting that contract back again. So we have been able to sustain it with various public and private dollars. Someday, if that program continues at the federal level, we will get those funds again, but we're also looking for alternatives as we speak. All right, any other ideas before I go to the next slide? Okay. So we talked about the support and stabilization services. Good job, Michelle. We talked about community service agency. Very good. Mentoring. Mentoring has sustained since 2002. Took me a second there. Through various iterations of federal funding, private funding, our own fundraising. This is like the only program in the agency that does a major event to sustain its services. So we have put a lot of work into a bigger picture sustainability plan for mentoring. Engage. Remember, we had that funded by EOHHS, a state agency, to develop internal capacity for training, training our staff, getting credentials. So we are soon, I think, going to start up another LSWA cohort. And then we also still have apprentices. We're also still able to offer career navigation support. So a lot of those things that started under Engage have continued. PCIT is a specific model. Um, Parent-child interaction therapy. It's a trauma treatment, evidence-based trauma treatment. And previously, we were able to start offering it in the agency under a SAMHSA grant, a federal grant, and we were funded to provide that service under the DCF support and stabilization contracts that were recently awarded. There are problems with the DCF S&S services in that we're not getting the referrals that we need, but if we were getting the referrals, we would be able to provide that service. And then also youth who have witnessed or experienced violence. several years ago, maybe 5 years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago, we were funded by OJJDP to offer reach to youth who had been exposed to violence in some way. 2 years later, we reapplied because we were seeing a need in the community that the youth that we were seeing were really tended to be experiencing violence in the home. And so PATH, the next iteration of it, really focused on providing clinical services to this more specific population of children and youth who had witnessed violence in their home. So you can see how over time things can kind of change a little bit, but the intent, like the bigger goal, remains the same. All right. Can anyone think of anything now?
Andy, we have a comment that there's currently setting up a cohort to start in December for the LSWA.
Nice. If you have questions, ask Jen. Jen in HR.
I would
Yes.
say the adventure base. I
Oh,
remember
good
I was
one.
here years
Uh-huh.
ago, and I remember Mel from back then. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's definitely one that has gone through like multiple iterations over the years to
Mhm.
serve specific populations based on both needs that we are seeing as well as what funders are wanting us to do. And Wild is probably the most recent major change to provide what the funder calls green care to young people who are high risk and or using substances. That's an excellent example. Any others that folks can think of? I think that we hit on them for most of the ones that folks here are involved in. Good job. Okay, more audience participation. So we're going to go through this list and you can give me a thumbs up or a yes or no in the chat, whatever, however you'd like to respond. Shout it out if you feel like it. But the question is, for each one of these, should this be sustained? Yes or no? Okay. So a leadership skills training for youth and young adults, should that be a sustainable program? Thumbs up. Yeah, good. Yes, our young people continue to need support and developing leadership skills. We need the next generation ready to lead us out of this mess that we're currently in. How about the next one? Substance use prevention. See thumbs up. I see yeses. Yes, we still have a need to prevent young people from initiating substance use. How about treatment? Substance use treatment. Does that need to be sustained? I see yeses and thumbs up. Yes, until prevention is 100% effective, we're going to need to provide treatment as well. All right, how about sometimes what we do when there's a model that we want to use in our programs, we will have staff go through a training of trainers so then they can come back and train internally. Does that need to be sustainable? And you might have to add a little bit onto your answer to explain. Phoebe says no. Not always. There's always no material.
Something else maybe to think about too is what type of, I guess, training for the trainers it would be. Because I think Sarah said something like, once we have enough trainers, we might not need more. If we already have like, you know, people trained before we even think about training a trainer, we might not need that, or there might not be a need for that particular training module at this time.
Mhm.
We don't know.
Yeah. Steph, go ahead.
So definitely 100% yes, because some of so the certifications for these don't last that long, and sometimes you lose trainers. So someone that may have been trained now isn't trained, so now you lost that person. So you could be, say you're at 5, and 3 of those people now do not want to recertify, or you don't have the funds to be recertified because they're not keeping up with their certification through the year. Um, Regardless of what that can be, there's always new material. There's also always new programs. So yeah, there's different ins and outs. Things are always changing. So I definitely feel like a yes for that reason.
Yeah. Anyone else? Cool. Good thinking here. This is often one of the ways that we tell funders that we will sustain their impact by developing internal training capacity, but it is not a one and done because of the ongoing need to maintain certification. We see changes and updates in materials, or sometimes certain curricula or trainings just are no longer relevant. We've had many of those throughout the years that were really popular and helpful with our young people that we would be laughed at for trying to use today. So that was good. Good. Okay. Mentoring. This one should be a easy one, given the earlier slide. Okay, good. Got yeses and thumbs up. Awesome. Um, so mentoring is one of the programs that we use volunteers. Yes, Jess, nice. Jess, new coordinator of mentoring, says, please sustain me. So we're working on it. So mentoring has volunteers. Would a one-time event to recognize volunteers need to be sustained? And this one, again, is maybe you might need to explain why you feel the way you feel. It looks like people are thinking. So in the chat, I'm saying, yes, we have new volunteers. We want to continue to be recruiting new volunteers, new mentors all the time and sustaining that relationship. Yes, if it's an annual event, right? Jess, can I put you on the spot? And what are your thoughts on that?
I was just typing too.
Oh.
One of at least the thoughts that I had too in terms of recognition is I know one of our challenges, and I know it's not just our mentoring group, even talking, through other trainings with other agencies that have similar mentoring programs, one of the challenges is just having volunteers or, having that declining interest in volunteering. So I would think if we have events to recognize these volunteers, word of mouth could even spread and just going like, oh, like, look what LUK does. Like they had this event to like appreciate me as a mentor. You should do this too. Like you'll get appreciation and things like that. So I think that even helps like promote the program and see where we could stand out in comparison to, say, another similar program.
Yeah, it could be a marketing strategy, recruitment strategy. Sure. Yes. And Michelle says in the chat, showing appreciation for those who give freely to the community can continue to have individuals volunteer. Absolutely. Yeah, you always want to be thanking your volunteers and appreciating them. And respecting their time that they give back to the program. All right, how about this next one? Purchasing and then deploying or implementing a new software. So we have done this in recent years. We've got Paylocity now. We have TripLog. We have a bunch of these in program development. We're using Monday.com for tracking. I'm seeing people saying yes, but Phoebe R was saying no. Sarah, or Stephanie is an eh. Oh, websites too, as we are seeing regularly. Uh-huh. Yeah. I think in general, wait, did someone come off mute? Sarah?
I did for a second. I was gonna
Yeah.
say, as part of administration, we see some of that software stuff a little bit more, and myself as part of marketing, we see some of that software stuff more. And with how much like the internet is expanding and how many updates things have, some software becomes outdated really, really fast nowadays. And so when 20 years ago you could have bought a software and it wouldn't need an update for a year, now we're getting pretty consistent updates and websites are saying, oh, we're going to be down for maintenance for a little bit. Our website needs really consistent updating. So even if we're not like necessarily getting new stuff, there's always something new that we have to deal with.
Mhm. Yeah. Steph, go ahead.
Maybe if the software programs could sustain their own programs and their way that they do it, then it would be a little easier.
Uh-huh.
Because I agree with Sarah. I feel like every time no matter what you're doing, whether it be like your banking app is like, oh, now you can deposit a check. And it's like, okay, but you still have some of them are like, depending on the bank, some people get it right away or other people have to wait
Mhm.
4 or 5 days. So if they could sustain their new softwares that seem to work, then I feel like it would be a great thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yvonne, were you going to say something?
Yes, I wanted to give an example. My
Yeah.
other job, I used to do human resources and billing, and I did it all manually. And when they asked me what did I wanted to do, I said human resources. So when they found a new billing specialist, they bought a new software, and it was so easy. It was easier for that person to process everything, and they were able to process more claims and all of that. So yeah,
Mhm.
sometimes it's important. It helps.
Yeah. Yeah, my experience, a lot of the software has limited access. So you get seats or something else that's equivalent. And as we grow, we might have to uh, spend more money to keep up with updates, like people are saying, but also making sure that we have enough licenses to cover all of the staff we need to get into it. Like, I don't think we have anyone here who's like expert in CareLogic, but we pay a lot to make sure that, hundreds of our staff can get in there. And I know there's always updates to that, and it's periodically down. And, you know, so yeah, software is not per se a one and done. Okay, last one on a list here. So building renovations. So we got some grant dollars to redo the entrance area at 545 in the past year. We were able to replace those doors with handicapped accessible doors. We replaced the ramp with a lift instead, so people who have mobility issues don't have to do that ramp that wraps around the waiting room. Now they can just step onto the platform and come down. We moved where people would check in and shifted that so there's even more space down there. How about that? Something like that.
I would say that we don't need regular renovations if things are not in poor shape. I think it becomes more with assistive technology and making sure of safety of employees. Those pieces can always be worked on and tweaked, but I don't know that you necessarily need to re-tear down our reception area. But yes, to kind of keep things modern for various needs, I think is important.
Sarah, would you mind, Sarah R., saying more about what you put in the chat? Like, I think that's important.
Yeah, I think the wording of saying building renovations like implies, yeah, kind of like a construction zone, and we have to put the whole area around caution tape. And I think that that level of improvement doesn't need to be sustained. Like once you hit accessibility standards, hopefully you only have to do that well once or twice, and then that part of the renovation part doesn't need to be sustained. But then like regular maintenance of what we build and making sure that the flooring isn't cracked and making sure that the smaller everyday things, like if you need to repaint, that's not a renovation that's being sustained. Um, but it is the result being sustained. So that was my thoughts there.
Yeah, good, good. And Yvonne, I like your comment too. It does help with staff morale.
Sorry, it's same like Sarah. I believe probably not constant renovation or like Michelle said, constant renovations, but at least just keeping it up and keeping it modern, and also accessibility to certain things, because that maybe when this building it was probably, who knows how long it was, and it probably needed some updating with handicap access or stuff like that. So like things like that. And it will keep, like I said, if it's updated, it will keep staff happy to come in. So like staff.
And the people that we serve too, they don't want to come into something that looks like it's, gonna fall down or something. Yeah. Yes, yes. Sarah's adding on that there might be, say, a phased in renovation project or different renovations that need to take place at different times, but those really are not like per se sustainability of the original renovation project. They're each kind of suppose a building needs a new roof. That's not really connected to renovations we did in the reception area. Any questions on these? I think
I have
nine.
a question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I'm kind of getting that like all of these could be argued that they need to be sustained. Is there anything that's just like cut and dry, not sustained?
I think you can always make a case that the impact of whatever you are trying to do should be sustained. The activities might change, but that bigger picture impact, unless the need has gone away. Sarah Rivas wants to argue. She says we only had to purchase the building once. Go ahead.
I mean, once you're not renting, you purchase the building once, taxes might be a separate thing, but the actual purchase of the building, a one-time deal. Unless I don't know enough about purchasing property. Could be very possible. I've never done so, but
Yeah. I mean, there are always ongoing costs with buildings and property, so there will always be a need for funds to be coming in. Unless you really have just purchased, like wild land, and that's your intent is to keep it wild. Yeah. Yeah. I was just getting ready to say, Phoebe, that 9 times out of 10, I think you can come up with a reason why there is some level of sustainability needed. Yeah, see? You can keep going here. And like maybe you need to get fences and maintain those fences and put up no trespassing signs, or who knows what you're doing. Or if you have trails, maybe you have to maintain the trails. So yeah. The phrase "nothing in life is free" is coming to my mind. All right, I just have a couple more slides here. Okay, so here are some things to keep in mind when you're thinking about sustainability. Exact replication is not likely to be funded. You're not just going to shift an existing program to a different funder like year after year. Each one wants to see things are growing and changing and kind of have their own stamp on a program. You want to make sure that in your sustainability plan, you're incorporating lessons learned using data, qualitative and quantitative. You know, what are people telling you as well as what the data shows. Oh, we didn't talk about in terms of sustainability, changing policies. So yes, eventually down the line they might change again, but thinking about, say, substance use prevention, changing policies at like a town or city level or state level certainly has a bigger impact on sustaining those changes and access to substances. The piece about capacity with training and developing internal trainers, that's an important piece to think about in some projects for sustainability. Funders like to see partnerships, and how will you develop partnerships that will continue to carry on the work. Maybe you're doing training internally and externally. So whatever intervention you are developing, you're working on, will not only be, say, within LUK, but also our partner agencies might be able to expand that reach elsewhere. Just another plug for evaluation, in that having that data that shows that we have had a positive impact is very helpful in order to sell the program to another funder and to get sustaining support. And just a reminder again, you think about sustaining outcomes or sustaining that impact, not necessarily sustaining specific activities. And I added this paragraph here. This paragraph has been used in our mentoring grants for like over 20 years. And it really speaks to the fact that in mentoring, that impact, that long-term outcome we're hoping to achieve is that young people who have, you know, some disadvantages or vulnerabilities in their life are develop a connection with a caring adult, and that relationship continues long after our formal support ends. So we make a commitment to support that match for at least a year. And at the end of the year, if that match wants to continue, we will continue providing support. We just had a match within the past year that had been together for like 10 years. So not only have we helped sustain that relationship, but that relationship after 10 years is going to continue without us. So I just wanted to show you there was another way to think about the impact of what we do. Right, a couple examples. I am trying to keep us on track with time here. So this is pretty typical, but it's also pretty weak. Like, we don't know where additional funding or support's coming from. We're just going to apply for more funding. Some additional ways, so these are real examples. This was the question, and there's not usually a lot of space. So this response basically is talking about building internal capacity around that training of trainers. We'll seek additional grants and sponsors, and then potentially we could do like a fee for service model. We could be paid by entities to provide trainings. I don't think we have pursued that option in this realm, but we have in some of our trauma trainings. And then here is a much more thorough, longer response. This came from our federal grant, one of our TIL services grants. And you can see this is really evidence that we pay attention to sustainability. It is one of the things that we talk about in the development of our applications. And we want to make sure that we will be responsible with the funds that are provided to us, as well as the people who put their trust in us too. So you can see how this goes all the way from we think about it early up here. We have multiple partners who are committed to the same outcome. And then we will continue to try to secure funds. And even if we're unsuccessful, we still have had, positive impact. The frameworks that we use really underlie or provide a solid foundation to sustaining that impact. I think one of the ways in which we have actually sustained this program and other transitional living programs is by the state began offering funding. So we're able to supplement our federal funding with state funding now and have really grown the program over years. And I do believe that is the last slide. Yes, so stop sharing. And I'll open it up for any questions that we might have in these last few minutes. I feel like sustainability is one of those things that often we don't have a ton of time to really think about and develop a strong plan at the application level, but it is important to at least have some thoughts around what happens when this initial funding ends? What happens if federal government decides to change priorities and stop funding something? Any comments, questions? All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here, for participating. We will meet again next week, again, talking about timelines. And then the NPDI applications are due on the 26th. So, and also on the 26th, we will not be meeting. So put that in your calendars, but we'll also put out reminders. Well, thanks, everybody. You know how to find us if you need any help or support from program development. So thank you. Have a great afternoon.